Project Loon. Thanks, Alex. Provide more insight into that story. Now this, more deaths and more guns found thanks to the botched Fast and Furious gun running operation. 3 more firearms were discovered at crime scenes in Mexico, and the rifles were traced to a gun shop that was told by the Department of Justice to sell to suspicious customers. Let's bring in Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich, who is the author of Fast and Furious, Barack Obama's bloodiest scandal and its shameless cover-up. Katie, are you surprised by this latest round of revelations?
I'm not surprised, because even Eric Holder, who isn't willing to admit much when it comes to Fast and Furious, has admitted that we're going to see lots of murders and deaths as a result of Fast and Furious in Mexico for years to come. We know that the Department of Justice sent at least 2,500 weapons into Mexico. 1,400 of those guns are still missing, and it's not like ATF is down there trying to track them down. The only way that we find these guns now is when they do show up at these violent crime scenes and are left, and there's no telling how many crimes they've been used in before they're left at their final destination.
So have people been arrested as a result of this?
There have been a few people who were arrested, but this was after a year of buying hundreds of firearms, and they were arrested only after the murder of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry. And it was almost, you look at the emails and you look at the track record, it really shows that they were in a panic mode and had to have something to prove for this operation, considering it had lethal results and still does. You know, we've seen at least 400 deaths in Mexico as a result of Fast and Furious. In 2012, we saw the death of a Mexican beauty queen. We recently saw, about a month ago, the murder of a police chief with Fast and Furious weapons. And so this is something that's continued. These are people who are brazen and are willing to take on not only just regular civilians, but public officials down in Mexico.
Senator Grassley, we know, has been trying to get information about this. Fast and Furious going back and forth with the Department of Justice on this. Has he gotten anywhere and any more information?
He has not gotten, I mean, Senator Grassley has done an excellent job of investigating, but the Department of Justice has been anything but cooperative. Grassley sent a letter to the Department of Justice and directly to Attorney General Eric Holder about a month ago, after we saw this revelation of the Mexican police chief being killed, asking why his Justice Department was not informing Congress of these new deaths that are linked to Fast and Furious weapons. You know, the Oversight Committee is still in a court battle when it comes to getting documents and to deciding whether President Obama's assertion of executive privilege will stand. And so we've seen lots of redacted documents, and we haven't seen much progress. And I can tell you the Brian Terry family doesn't feel like they've seen much progress either. Yeah,
they're outraged. Of course, we've spoken to them recently. Here's what the ATF has to say about this in a statement they released. I'll get you to respond. They say ATF has accepted responsibility for the mistakes made in the Fast and the Furious investigation, and the Attorney General's direction. We have taken appropriate and decisive action to ensure that these errors will not be repeated. And we acknowledge that, regrettably, firearms related to the Fast and Furious investigation will likely continue to be recovered at future crime scenes. Do those words comfort you that this won't happen again in the future?
They don't comfort me, considering we haven't seen a lot of consequences for the people involved in Fast and Furious at the ATF level. We definitely haven't seen consequences for people like Lanny Brewer in the Justice Department. So I'm not too convinced that we're not going to see something like this happen again. And as I stated at the beginning of the segment, ATF isn't down in Mexico desperately trying to track these weapons down. 1,400 of them are still missing, and the only way that they are recovered is when they're left at violent crime scenes. So unfortunately, we have a high body bag count here. Yeah,
and that was part of the whole point of this program, was to be able to track them, and they're not doing that. Katie Pavlich is a Fox News contributor, and she's the author of the book Fast and Furious, Barack Obama's bloodiest scandal and shameless cover-up. Thanks for joining us this morning, Katie.
Thank you. Have a good Saturday.
You too.